Hi, this is Antoine Lavoisier. He was born on August 26, 1743, in Paris, France, to a very wealthy family. His father was a lawyer, and his mother died when he was 5, which meant Antoine inherited a lot of money. Between the ages of 11 and 18, Antoine was educated at the College of Four Nations and enrolled in law school at 18 years old. There, he realized he preferred to study chemistry and math over law. When he was 26, he bought into a tax company that gathered taxes for the French government, and he tried to reform tax law for poor taxpayers. This sounds pretty good, right? Well, it won't be, but we can get to that later. In 1771, he married Marie Anne Pierret-Pauls. He was 28 while she was only 13 years old. As Antoine's career developed, Marie would translate his works, critique his papers, and keep accurate drawings and records of his experiments. Let's talk a little bit more about what those were. Lavoisier was inspired by the Enlightenment thinkers of his time and started the Chemical Revolution. His influences were Pierre Macquer, Etienne Cadillac, and Jean-Étienne Guittard. In 1764, he published his first scientific paper and read it to the very elite French Academy of Sciences. In 1767, he conducted a geological survey of Alsace-Lorraine with Guittard. In 1769, he was elected to the same academy and started to work on the first geological map of France. In 1775, Lavoisier was appointed a commissioner of the Royal Gunpowder and Saltpeter Administration and resided at the Paris Arsenal. His work with gunpowder was successful. He increased the supply and ensured the purity of its constituents: saltpeter, sulfur, and charcoal. In 1778, he found that when mercury oxide is heated, its weight decreases. The oxygen gas it releases has the same weight as the weight lost by the mercury oxide. He announced the law of the conservation of mass in 1785. Lavoisier suspected that combustion and respiration were chemically similar. With Pierre-Simon Laplace, he demonstrated this by measuring the amount of carbon dioxide and heat given off by a guinea pig when it breathes. They compared this to the amount of heat produced when they burnt carbon to produce the same amount exhaled by the guinea pig. Lavoisier and Laplace concluded that respiration was a form of combustion, and they developed the oxygen theory of combustion. In 1783, Lavoisier coined the term hydrogen for the gas that Henry Cavendish had recognized as a new element 17 years prior. With Simon Laplace, Lavoisier burned hydrogen with oxygen and found that water was produced. This was groundbreaking because until this point, people had thought that water was an element, not a compound. In 1787, Lavoisier, Louis Bernard Gaeton de Morveau, Claude-Louis Berthollet, and Antoine-François de Fourclay submitted a new program for the reforms of chemical nomenclature to the Academy. The method of chemical nomenclature introduced a new system for naming elements. The classical elements of earth, air, fire, and water were discarded. Substances that couldn't be further broken down were listed as elements, and their names were for universal usage. Before this, in 1772, Lavoisier and other chemists placed a diamond in a closed glass jar. They used a magnifying glass to focus the sun's rays on the diamond, which burnt and disappeared. The overall weight of the jar was unchanged, which corroborated the law of conservation of mass discussed earlier. The gas produced from the burning was carbon dioxide. Lavoisier realized diamond and charcoal were forms of an element he'd call carbon. Later, in 1777, Lavoisier identified sulfur as an element after conducting several experiments with it and finding that it couldn't be broken down further. Lavoisier's genius was cut to a short end. Despite being a political and social liberal, Lavoisier was branded a traitor in 1794 because of former involvement with taxation with the French government. He was guillotined that same year, just after extremists closed the French Academy of Science and other institutions. Lavoisier is remembered as the father of modern chemistry for a good reason. His chemical revolution opposed the phlogiston theory, helped construct the metric system with the first extensive list of elements, and reformed chemical nomenclature. His legacy lives on through the Lavoisier Medal and similar prizes given in his name. Without him, chemistry wouldn't be where it is today.